All right, so we are back, and it is finally Prime Card Fight Week. It is finally time to settle all the debates. And speaking of debates, I just got to say it one time. Check out breakdowns, new merch, including some W.A.D.E concept gear, including some Oos gear from your favorite sensei that's dropping Thursday night at midnight, right before we go live for our 24-hour watch party for the Prime Card, undisclosed location, guests calling in, some will be in person, the whole team's there. It's gonna be amazing, but like I said, it's all for the Prime Card, and we just did a video on how Logan Paul beats Dillon Danis, and we're gonna have this as a little bit of a series going into fight week and going into the fights, where we break down how each fighter from the co-main and the main win their fights. Listen, I wish I could do this for every fight, but there's so many bangers on the card. You're gonna have to check some of it out over on the breakdown, so take a look at that channel. We're doing a ton of watches for all the content coming out on Fight Week. But today, I thought, since we did one on Logan, we have to do one on his opponent. You can argue that Dillon Danis has already stolen the show with this promotion, but at the end of the day, you still have to fight. And there's questions all over the place. Is Dillon actually training? Who is his coach? Does he even have one? I know he's in Manchester now, but still the question remains, does he even show up? But the main one, how does Dillon Danis actually beat Logan Paul? The breakdown, let's go. All right, so we've done breakdown after breakdown after breakdown on Dillon's boxing skill, but in case you haven't seen it, let's just take a look at a couple of quick clips here. This is him before the supposed KSI fight on the mitts. Again, just boxing. We know Dillon is an MMA fighter, so it's going to be a little unorthodox, but let's take a look anyway.
1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2.
So again, you see Dillon exhibiting some decent enough boxing skill on the mitts here, but again, there's no real intention behind shots. This is one of the things that we've talked about with Dillon in the Logan fight. The comparison to Logan's opponents that gave him some problems, right? And that's really just KSI or Floyd Mayweather. What gave Logan problems? It was aggressive power punching or aggressive shots that gave Logan a reason to back off and stay on the back foot and stay behind his jab. I have no doubt that Dillon will be aggressive. My worry is that he's not sitting down on shots enough, which again, I understand why. You don't want to get hit with something on the other side. You don't want to get countered with something big. But my worry is that I don't know if Dillon packs enough punch to get Logan's attention. And maybe Dillon's just relying on the fact that he's going to be in better shape, which we've heard him say many times like this one.
How you think you're gonna win? How you think you're gonna beat me?
Wait,
bro,
what?
you're gonna gas. Look at your arms. Bro, look at your arms. You came in last like 2 minutes, bro.
And while that is a sound strategy, Logan has struggled with his gas tank. I don't know if that's gonna be enough. The reason Logan struggled with his gas tank in some of the fights versus KSI and even with Floyd is they pushed him, not just with volume, but with a threat behind that volume. There was some power there. And when we watch Dillon, this is just one instance, but when we watch him, it's not a lot of power. Just kind of touching the mitts. Not really sitting down on anything. That left hand was not bad. And maybe it's just because he doesn't want to show a ton. That could also be a reason for this. Dillon doesn't want to show what he's been doing. He doesn't want to show how he's gotten better or if he's gotten better. And you can see in little instances like this one with Alex Pkwy, again, you're just kind of moving around. Not much we're really seeing there. But it's just like parrying shots, slapping away, touching. It's tech sparring, essentially, right? Like, that's nice. You catch and then throw something over the top. That's cool. But, again, we're not seeing that intent, that vicious shot that Dillon could catch Logan with. And, of course, we all saw this where Logan made his breakdown to it. Dillon with his hands low. Sparring here. Goes upstairs. Again, kind of almost... He almost wants to throw a gazelle hook there, but he throws, again, more of a leaping in uppercut to get to his backhand a la Conor McGregor, and then goes to the body, hits the turnbuckle, but he's still working the body there, and the clinch goes right back to it. So shoves off, changes his level. You just don't like that, one, he carries his hands that low. Like right here, he doesn't feel like he's in any danger, so he's allowed to do that, but it's just, it feels slow. Right? It just feels really slow and it feels methodical. It looks almost purposeless, if that makes sense. And again, the purpose behind it being just constant methodical pressure, but the purpose in the shots doesn't feel like the necessary intent, viciousness that he needs to get Logan to back off a bit or to put Logan in any kind of danger to where Logan has to either get into that clinch where Dillon wants to be 100%, or make Logan start to fire off that volume off his back foot, his jab, whatever it is, to keep Logan away, and that being the reason that Dillon can gas him. Because Dillon doesn't have to be a fundamentally great boxer to beat Logan Paul. And you have to wonder if this lawsuit, we do have to talk about it, is weighing on Dillon at all, right? The amount of money that he's potentially going to have to pay. I saw where Logan was on Jake Paul's podcast, basically saying he and/or Nina is going to take everything from Dillon in this lawsuit, potentially jail time, and apparently it's worse than we even know right now.
I think now, because of the lawsuit, he has to fight you to make the money that from the fight that he was going to make. But before that, I fully thought he was going to back out. But interestingly enough, he walked himself into this situation where he's going to need money, otherwise he's going to declare bankruptcy.
But even then, it doesn't end. You put liens on every paycheck he gets for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Y'all trying to garnish his wages? Damn.
I'm not a big fan of taking it that far, but it is what it is. So you just wonder how Dillon is dealing with that side of this mentally. Does it motivate him even more to go in and starch Logan and put him away? And, you know, you have that moral victory, you have that physical victory, and, you know, man of the people, whatever the arc Dillon is trying to be on right now. Or does that push him to a place that makes him desperate for that, frustrates him like he's trying to do to Logan, and then affects his fight? And we do have to mention the fact that Dillon has done a ton of press, a ton of media to try to build this fight, to try to make this fight, whether you agree with how he did it or not, the biggest one on the card, and he might damn well have accomplished that to the general audience. I'm still very much intrigued with the main event, even more than Logan and Dillon. I love this fight, but the main event obviously is something that I think is going to have a lasting effect on this scene a little bit more. Whatever happens in it does kind of steer what happens next for influencer boxing. But look at all the shows Dillon's been on, Andrew. Show the Twitter stuff. While Logan has done his contractual obligations, it's kind of been it. And again, we talk about how much is Dillon really training with his lack of a coach and lack of a team. Does he just assume because he's got a better gas tank in his opinion, and because he's a fighter, that's going to be enough to beat Logan? Because I'm guaranteeing you now it will not be. But in my opinion, this is what will. What you've heard from Logan about what he's going to do to Dillon Danis is predicated on the fact that Dillon is not a boxer. But Dillon doesn't have to be a good boxer to beat Logan Paul. He doesn't. He doesn't have to be remotely good. He just has to be a couple of things, and that's tough, aware of what Logan likes, which is his lead hand hook, and yes, the right hand comes out sparingly. He has to have pressure, like he's talking about. He needs to be able to move forward on Logan, but he has to get Logan's attention early. He has to show Logan Paul that this fight is not as easy as Logan is saying it is. And quite frankly, from what I'm reading in Logan's body language, the way he's talking, how easy he thinks this fight's going to be. Let's go all the way back to KSI number 1, all the way back, where Logan was the better athlete, he was stronger, he was faster, he was relying on those things to build his confidence for a fight that he had never been in, against a guy that he didn't know much about. He overlooked KSI a lot in that first fight, and he absolutely paid for it. And I'm not saying that Logan hasn't trained his ass off. I think he trained his ass off in the first one. My point is the mindset. Logan has forgotten what it's like to lose. I think Logan has tried to convince himself that he's no longer that person. Maybe he got over the hump in the Floyd Mayweather fight, but he still has not won a fight. In that ring, when times get tough, Logan still hasn't answered that question if he's willing to go back to that place that he went in Logan Paul versus KSI 1. The absolute trenches. What happens if Logan can't knock Dillon Danis out? He could absolutely win this fight on points, for sure. But what does the gas tank look like? What does the strategy look like? If that first round or 2 or 3 or 4, even if he's successful, he's not as successful as he wanted to be, and Dillon is still there in front of him. These are things that Logan still hasn't answered yet. When push came to shove in the KSI 1 fight, KSI took it from him. When push came to shove in the KSI 2 fight, KSI took it from him. He survived the Floyd Mayweather fight, which all credit to him. That was an amazing performance for the level he was at that time. But that fight wasn't very competitive, and there wasn't a lot of pressure on Logan to win. It was almost like if you survive, you win. That's not the case here. Logan has to win this fight. In my opinion, he has to do it in dominant fashion. You wonder, for a guy that struggled with that big stage and with that big moment answering that call, if he isn't able to do that early and the crowd starts to murmur a little bit. He remembers where he was in those first couple of fights, and he has to make that decision whether to dig deeper or do what he's done before. As Logan crossed that hurdle, he got past that mental block to say, I'm going to win this fight, whatever it takes. Because say what you want about Dillon Danis, he is a fighter. He's a dog, and I don't know if he's going away unless you switch his lights off. I do think he will be there for the fight And regardless if he's winning or losing, he's going to keep coming forward at you. I see this a lot like a Nate Diaz and Jake Paul fight. Dillon doesn't have the boxing skill that Nate does and hasn't been doing it for as long as Nate has, but he is younger, still around his prime, no pun intended. But it really, in my opinion, for Dillon, comes down to a couple of things. You have to instill doubt in Logan Paul's mind. You have to hit him with power or get his attention, because the pace is, yes, good. The aggression, yes, good. The clinch work, yes, all good. But if it has no intention behind it, if there is no devastating shots behind it, and you're just in the clinch and it becomes a hug fest, that's not going to go Dillon's way, in my opinion, because once they separate, Logan's going to get back to his boxing. And Dillon will get hit while he comes to range. He looks like he's okay doing that, as you've seen him bash his skull against pieces of wood, a wall, Andrew Schultz's mustache. There's been a lot of things that Dillon has given head to. He needs to make Logan remember what it felt like when KSI stood in front of Logan and was undeterred by anything. He needs to make Logan remember what it felt like under those lights to shrink. He needs to make him remember what it felt like when that fight became harder than Logan thought. In my opinion, it's not a high percentage chance that Dillon does this, but if those first couple of rounds Dillon comes out and stays relatively unscathed and is in Logan's face and he's making him pop that jab out, work off his back foot, sure, he may be walking into shots, but he's getting to the body like you saw in that clip we looked at earlier where he's leaping in. Boom, boom, shots to the body, burying his head in Logan's chest, maybe getting a little dirty in the clinch, right? Over under grips, maybe even hooking around that headlock, getting the referee to warn him a couple times, frustrate Logan, get him out of his game plan and his element, make this a little bit of a sloppy, dirty fight. Most importantly, he has to hurt Logan with something. It can't be a boxing match. Dillon will lose a boxing match, but a fight, Dillon can win that. And those two things are very different, because Logan Paul can win a boxing match versus a guy that's never had one, but one thing we know for sure is that Logan Paul's never won a fight. So like I said, Dillon has to do a lot right here, and it's not the most likely scenario that I'm giving you, but we gave you how Logan Paul wins, and this, in my opinion, is how Dillon absolutely has to. Pressure, persistence, pace, and power all rolled into one, and the ability to take shots from Logan off that cranium. It might not be the most flashy thing in the world, but to get the job done, Dillon's got to go to work. He's got to put fear into Logan Paul. So like I said, not super likely, but that's my scenario. That's how I think Dillon Danis wins this fight, if it's going to be that way. And essentially, he has to do a lot of things that I don't know that he even has the capability to do. I don't know if that happens, but again, I don't have those answers. Just giving you guys scenarios for what can happen on the prime card in the co-main event. Dillon Danis, Logan Paul. How does Dillon beat Logan? He doesn't box him. He fights him. But I don't have those answers. So October 14th, this Saturday, we will be live. I hope you guys are watching with me as we take a look and see who really wins, Dillon Danis or Logan Paul. Guess we'll find out.